The November air in Salem, Oregon, carried the scent of fallen leaves and wood smoke as Lana pulled her aging Honda Civic into the familiar gravel driveway of her grandmother's Victorian house. The two-story home, painted in warm cream with forest green shutters, had been the gathering place for the Morrison family's Thanksgiving celebrations for as long as she could remember. Jack-o'-lanterns still dotted the front porch from Halloween, their carved faces now weathered and slightly sunken, mirroring how Lana felt about returning home. She sat in her car for a moment, watching through the bay window as her family moved about inside. The golden light spilled out onto the front lawn, where her father's pristine BMW and her mother's white Lexus SUV were already parked. Her heart sank as she noticed her younger brother Jake's red pickup truck as well. The whole family was already here, and she was late. Again. The front door opened before she could even knock, and her grandmother's warm smile greeted her. "Lana, sweetheart, I was wondering when you'd arrive." Eleanor Morrison, at 78, still moved with the grace of someone half her age. Her silver hair was perfectly styled in soft waves, and she wore her favorite burgundy cardigan over a cream-colored dress. "Sorry I'm late, Grandma. The traffic from Portland was terrible, and I had to stop for gas twice." Lana hugged her grandmother tightly, inhaling the familiar scent of vanilla and lavender that always surrounded her. "Don't you worry about that. Come in, come in. Everyone's in the living room." Eleanor's eyes twinkled with something Lana couldn't quite identify. Perhaps mischief, perhaps concern. The living room buzzed with conversation and laughter. Her father, Richard, sat in his usual spot in the leather recliner, discussing stock market trends with her Uncle Tom. Her mother, Patricia, was arranged elegantly on the sofa, her blonde hair pulled back in a sleek chignon, sharing gossip with her sister-in-law, Linda. Jake lounged on the floor near the fireplace, scrolling through his phone while half-heartedly listening to his cousin Mark's stories about college football. "Hey, everyone," Lana said, setting her purse down and shrugging out of her wool coat. She had chosen her outfit carefully, a navy blue sweater dress that was both professional and approachable, hoping to make a good impression after their last family gathering had ended in an uncomfortable argument about her career choices. The room fell silent for a moment. Her father glanced up from his conversation, gave her a brief nod, and immediately returned to discussing mutual funds with Tom. Her mother's gaze swept over her appearance with the clinical assessment of a fashion critic, lingering on Lana's slightly scuffed boots and the small hole in her tights she'd hoped no one would notice. "Lana," Patricia's voice was coolly polite. "You made it." "Hi, Mom. Dad." Lana's voice came out smaller than she intended. She moved toward the sofa, hoping to join the conversation, but her mother had already turned back to Linda, launching into an animated discussion about the new country club's holiday decorations. Jake looked up from his phone long enough to give her a sympathetic smile. "Hey, sis, how's the journalism thing going?" Before she could answer, their father's voice cut through the room. "Jake, come here and listen to this. Tom's telling me about the new construction project his firm just landed. Now that's a real career with real growth potential." The implication hung in the air like smoke. Lana felt her cheeks burn as she realized the subtle dig was aimed at her decision to pursue freelance journalism instead of the business degree her parents had wanted her to get. She had been struggling to make ends meet, picking up small assignments for local newspapers and online publications, but she was passionate about her work and believed she was finally finding her voice as a writer. "I'll just go help Grandma in the kitchen," she said quietly. But no one seemed to hear her. The kitchen was a sanctuary of warmth and delicious aromas. Eleanor stood at the counter, basting the golden brown turkey with practiced efficiency. The countertops were covered with dishes in various stages of preparation. Mashed potatoes warming in a slow cooker, green bean casserole bubbling in the oven, and her grandmother's famous cranberry sauce cooling in a crystal bowl. "They're doing it again, aren't they?" Eleanor said without turning around. Lana slumped against the kitchen island, fighting back tears. "I don't understand what I did wrong this time. I thought we were past all this after our talk last month." "Oh, sweetheart." Eleanor set down the basting brush and turned to face her granddaughter. "You didn't do anything wrong. Your parents are just complicated people. They have their own ideas about success and happiness, and sometimes they forget that those ideas might not be right for everyone. But I am successful, Grandma. I got that article published in the Oregonian last week, and the editor said they want to see more of my work. I'm building something real, something that matters to me." Eleanor's eyes softened. know you are, dear. And I'm proud of you for following your passion. Not everyone has the courage to do that. Through the kitchen doorway, Lana could hear her mother's laughter mixing with Linda's, their conversation flowing easily without any acknowledgement of her absence. Her father's voice boomed as he shared some story about a successful business deal, and Jake's occasional chuckles indicated he was being drawn into the conversation about real careers. I just don't understand why they can't see that I'm trying my best, Lana whispered, her voice breaking slightly. I work harder than anyone I know, and I'm good at what I do. Why isn't that enough? Eleanor moved closer and placed a gentle hand on Lana's shoulder. Sometimes people get so caught up in their own fears and expectations that they forget to see what's right in front of them. Your parents love you, Lana, but they're scared. They want security for you, and they don't understand that security can come in many different forms. It doesn't feel like love right now, Lana admitted, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. It feels like disappointment. Like I'm not the daughter they wanted. Oh, my dear girl. Eleanor pulled her into a warm embrace. You are exactly the granddaughter I always hoped for. You're brave, you're talented, and you have a kind heart. Don't let anyone make you feel like that's not enough. As they stood there in the kitchen, surrounded by the comforting smells of Thanksgiving dinner, Lana felt a small spark of hope kindle in her chest. At least she had one person in her corner, one person who believed in her dreams and saw her worth. It would have to be enough for now. The dining room had been transformed into a picture-perfect Thanksgiving tableau. Eleanor's antique mahogany table was set with her finest china, delicate white plates with gold trim that had been passed down through 3 generations of Morrison women. Crystal glasses caught the light from the chandelier above, and the centerpiece of autumn leaves and small pumpkins created a warm, inviting atmosphere that belied the underlying tension Lana felt settling in her stomach. She found herself seated between her cousin Mark and an empty chair that had been designated for her grandmother, directly across from her parents. It wasn't lost on her that this positioning felt like facing a tribunal rather than joining a family meal. Her mother and father sat side by side, speaking in low tones about something that made her father's jaw clench and her mother's perfectly manicured fingers drum against the tablecloth. So, Lana, Uncle Tom said as he carved the turkey with expert precision, Jake was telling us about your writing. That's interesting. The way he said interesting made it sound like a medical condition rather than a career choice. Lana forced a smile and straightened her shoulders. I actually just had a piece published in the Oregonian about the homeless crisis in Portland. It's been getting a lot of positive feedback. That's nice, dear, her mother said absently, not looking up from arranging the napkin in her lap. But when are you going to think about getting a real job? You can't freelance forever. This is a real job, Mom. I'm building a portfolio, making connections, establishing myself in the field. Her father finally looked directly at her for the first time since she'd arrived. Lana, you're 24 years old. You're living in that tiny apartment, driving a car that's older than some of your cousins, and you can barely afford to pay your bills. How is that building anything? The words hit her like a physical blow. She felt her face flush with embarrassment and anger. Around the table, conversations had gradually died down as family members became aware of the tension building between Lana and her parents. Richard. Eleanor's voice cut through the awkward silence as she entered the dining room carrying a basket of warm dinner rolls. Perhaps we could focus on gratitude today rather than criticism. We're just being practical, Mom, Patricia said, her voice taking on the patient tone she used when she thought she was being reasonable. We want what's best for Lana, and struggling as a freelancer isn't what's best for anyone. I'm not struggling, Lana said, though her voice lacked conviction. The truth was, she had been struggling. Last month she'd had to ask her grandmother for help with her rent, and she'd been eating ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches for the past 2 weeks to make her grocery budget stretch. Then why did you have to borrow money from your grandmother? Her father asked, his voice sharp with frustration. Why can't you afford to buy a decent car or live in a safe neighborhood? Lana felt her world crumble around her. She looked at her grandmother, who had gone very still beside her chair, her face pale. You told them? Eleanor's voice was barely above a whisper. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Your mother asked me directly, and I didn't want to lie. Jesus, Lana, Jake said, his voice filled with genuine concern. Why didn't you tell us you were having money problems? We could have helped. I didn't want charity, Lana said, her voice breaking. I wanted to prove that I could make it on my own, that my choices weren't mistakes. But they are mistakes, her mother said, her voice gentler now but still firm. Honey, we love you. But this fantasy of being a writer isn't working out. You need to be realistic about your future. It's not a fantasy. Lana's voice rose, and she immediately regretted it. Several of her cousins were staring at her with a mixture of sympathy and embarrassment. I'm good at what I do. I'm making a difference, telling stories that matter. Stories don't pay the bills, her father said flatly, and they don't build retirement funds or buy houses or provide security for a family. Not everyone defines success the same way you do, Dad. Success is being able to take care of yourself and the people you love. Richard shot back. Success is having something to show for your hard work. What do you have to show for 4 years of college and 3 years of chasing this dream? Lana felt tears threatening to spill over. She looked around the table at her family, some looking uncomfortable, others nodding in agreement with her father's harsh words. Only her grandmother's face showed understanding and support. I have my integrity, she said quietly. I have work that I'm passionate about. I have stories that have helped people and brought attention to important issues. Integrity doesn't pay rent, her mother said with a sigh. Passion doesn't put food on the table. Your grandmother shouldn't have to support you because you refuse to get a real job, her father added, his voice growing louder. It's not fair to her, and it's not fair to us to watch you struggle and fail when you could be successful in a stable career. The room fell silent except for the soft clinking of silverware against china, as a few family members continued eating, clearly trying to pretend they weren't witnessing this family drama unfold. Lana felt smaller and more alone than she had in years. I think, Eleanor said suddenly, her voice carrying a strength that surprised everyone. That's quite enough. She rose from her chair with the dignity of a queen, her spine straight and her eyes flashing with something Lana had never seen before. Anger. This is supposed to be a celebration of gratitude, not an attack on one of our family members. Mom, we're just trying to help her see reason, Patricia said, but her voice had lost some of its conviction. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're trying to shame a young woman for pursuing her dreams and working hard to achieve them. Eleanor's gaze moved around the table, taking in each face. Lana has more courage in her little finger than most people have in their entire bodies. She's following her passion, telling stories that matter, and yes, she's struggling financially, but she's not giving up. Grandma, it's okay, Lana said softly. But Eleanor held up a hand. No, it's not okay. It's not okay to attack someone for not conforming to your idea of success. It's not okay to make someone feel ashamed for taking risks and pursuing their dreams. And it's certainly not okay to do it at my dinner table on Thanksgiving. The silence that followed was deafening. Lana felt a mixture of gratitude toward her grandmother and deep embarrassment at being the center of such a scene. She wished she could disappear, could somehow rewind the evening and find a way to avoid this confrontation entirely. Her father's face was red with anger and embarrassment. Her mother looked as if she'd been slapped. Around the table, her extended family shifted uncomfortably, clearly wishing they were anywhere else. I think, Lana said quietly, standing up from her chair, maybe I should go. Sit down, Eleanor said firmly. You're not going anywhere. We're going to finish this meal like a family, and then we're going to have dessert and coffee like civilized people. Lana slowly sank back into her chair. She wondered if this Thanksgiving would be remembered as the day her family finally broke apart completely, or if somehow her grandmother's fierce protection would be the beginning of something new. The rest of dinner passed in uncomfortable silence, broken only by stilted requests to pass the potatoes, or compliments about the turkey that felt forced and hollow. Lana pushed food around her plate, her appetite completely gone, while her parents maintained their stony silence across the table. The tension was so thick, it seemed to press against her chest, making it difficult to breathe. Her cousins made valiant attempts at normal conversation. Mark talked about his upcoming graduation from law school, and Linda's daughter Sarah shared news about her engagement. But every topic seemed to underscore the ways in which Lana was falling behind in the traditional markers of success and stability. Eleanor, however, seemed energized by the confrontation. She ate with purpose, asked thoughtful questions about everyone's lives, and pointedly included Lana in every conversation. When Sarah mentioned her engagement, Eleanor turned to Lana with genuine interest. Lana, Didn't you write that beautiful piece about modern relationships for that online magazine? The one about how love looks different for everyone? Lana's cheeks warmed with surprise and gratitude. You read that? Of course I read it. I read everything you write. I have a scrapbook full of your articles. Eleanor's eyes twinkled with pride. That particular piece made me think about your grandfather and how unconventional our courtship was by the standards of our time. I'd love to hear about that, Sarah said, leaning forward with interest. I'm always curious about how couples from different generations met and fell in love. As Eleanor began telling the story of how she and Lana's grandfather had met at a jazz club in 1962, where she was working as a cigarette girl to pay for nursing school, and he was playing saxophone in the house band, Lana felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. Her grandmother's voice was warm and animated, her hands gesturing gracefully as she painted a picture of a time when their love story had seemed impossible. A working-class girl from the wrong side of town, and a musician whose parents had already chosen a suitable wife for him. People told us we were making a mistake, Eleanor said, her eyes finding Lana's across the table. They said he should marry someone from his own social class, someone who could help his career. They said I should find a nice, stable man with a regular job who could give me security. But you didn't listen, Lana said softly. We couldn't listen. We knew that what we had was real, even if it wasn't what everyone else thought we should want. Eleanor's voice grew softer, more thoughtful. Your grandfather played in clubs and taught music lessons for 40 years. We never got rich, but we built a life full of music and love and adventure. When he died, he left me this house, 3 children who adored him, and a lifetime of memories that no amount of money could buy. Lana felt tears prick her eyes again, but this time they weren't tears of humiliation or anger. They were tears of recognition, of finally feeling understood. That's a beautiful story, Grandma, Jake said, and Lana was surprised to hear genuine emotion in his voice. I never knew it was so difficult for you guys in the beginning. Most beautiful stories are difficult in the beginning, Eleanor said, her gaze still locked on Lana's. The things worth having are rarely easy to get. As dessert was served, Eleanor's famous apple pie with vanilla ice cream, the conversation gradually became more natural. The earlier confrontation hadn't been forgotten, but it had been set aside in favor of the kind of gentle family storytelling that made holidays memorable. Lana found herself relaxing slightly, though she could still feel the weight of her parents' disappointment, like a physical presence. After dessert, as the family began the traditional post-meal cleanup, Eleanor pulled Lana aside. Help me with something in my bedroom, dear. Lana followed her grandmother up the narrow staircase to the second floor, past the family photographs that lined the walls. Pictures of weddings, graduations, births, and holidays spanning decades. Eleanor's bedroom was exactly as Lana remembered it. Neat and feminine, with a 4-poster bed covered in a handmade quilt and a vanity table that held an array of vintage perfume bottles and jewelry boxes. Sit down, sweetheart, Eleanor said, gesturing to the small chair in front of the vanity. I have something I want to give you. Grandma, you don't need to give me anything. You've already done so much. Hush, Eleanor said gently, moving to her dresser and opening the top drawer. This isn't about what I need to do. This is about what I want to do. She pulled out a small velvet jewelry box that Lana had never seen before. It was clearly old, the deep blue fabric worn smooth in places, and the gold clasp had the dull patina of age. This belonged to my grandmother, your great-great-grandmother, Rose, Eleanor said, settling onto the edge of the bed. She gave it to me when I was about your age, when I was struggling to decide whether to follow my heart or follow what everyone else thought I should do. Eleanor opened the box to reveal a stunning vintage ring. The center stone was a deep blue sapphire, surrounded by tiny diamonds in an intricate Art Deco setting. Even in the soft bedroom light, it seemed to glow with its own inner fire. It's beautiful, Lana breathed, reaching out to touch the box gently. Rose was a lot like you, Eleanor continued. She was strong-willed and independent, and she refused to let anyone else define her worth. She married for love instead of money, started her own business when women weren't supposed to do such things, and raised 4 children during the Great Depression. She always said this ring was a reminder that true value comes from within, not from what other people think you should be. Eleanor lifted the ring from the box and held it out to Lana. I want you to have it. Grandma, I can't take this. It's too valuable, too important. It's exactly as valuable and important as it should be, which is why it belongs with you." Eleanor's voice was firm but gentle. "You're the only one in this family who reminds me of Rose. You have her spirit, her determination, her refusal to settle for a life that doesn't fit who you are." Lana felt tears streaming down her cheeks as she looked at the ring. "But what will Mom and Dad think? What will the rest of the family think?" "I imagine they'll think exactly what they're supposed to think," Eleanor said with a small smile. "That this ring belongs to the granddaughter who has the courage to follow her dreams, even when it's difficult, even when people she loves don't understand." With trembling hands, Lana allowed her grandmother to slide the ring onto her right ring finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting for her all along. "There," Eleanor said, satisfaction evident in her voice. "Now you have something that represents your real value, not the value other people try to place on you." As they sat together in the quiet bedroom, Lana felt something shift inside her. The ring felt warm and solid on her finger, a tangible reminder that she came from a line of strong women who had faced uncertainty and criticism with grace and determination. "Thank you," she whispered, knowing that the words were inadequate for the gift she had received. Not just the ring, but the validation, the support, the reminder that she was worthy of love and respect exactly as she was. "Don't thank me yet," Eleanor said with a mischievous twinkle in her eye. "Wait until you see how your parents react when we go back downstairs." The living room fell silent as Lana and Eleanor descended the stairs together. Lana's right hand was clasped behind her back, hiding the ring, but her grandmother walked with the purposeful stride of someone who was about to make an important announcement. The family had gathered for coffee and conversation, scattered across the familiar furniture, but something in Eleanor's demeanor made everyone look up expectantly. "I have something to share with all of you," Eleanor said, her voice carrying the authority of the family matriarch. "Something that I think will help you understand why this evening has been so important to me." Patricia looked up from her coffee cup with a carefully neutral expression. "What is it, Mom?" "I've given Rose's ring to Lana," Eleanor said simply. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Patricia's cup clattered against its saucer, coffee sloshing over the rim. Richard's face went from pale to red in the span of a heartbeat. Jake looked confused, while the extended family members exchanged glances that ranged from curious to uncomfortable. "You what?" Patricia's voice was sharp with shock and what sounded like betrayal. "Mother, that ring has been in our family for generations. It's supposed to go to—" Eleanor's voice was calm but steel-edged. "To the daughter who thinks her child is a disappointment? To the daughter who spends more time criticizing than supporting? To the daughter who has forgotten what it means to take risks for love? That's not fair," Richard said, standing up from his chair. "We love Lana. We want what's best for her. Do you?" Eleanor asked, turning to face him directly. "Because from where I've been sitting, it looks like you want what's most convenient for you. What makes you look good to your friends at the country club? What fits your narrow definition of success?" Lana felt the ring warm against her finger, and she slowly brought her hand forward, letting the sapphire catch the light. The ring seemed to pulse with its own inner fire, and she realized that this moment was about more than just jewelry. It was about claiming her place in the family, her right to be accepted and loved for who she was. "I want to tell you about your great-great-grandmother Rose," Eleanor continued, settling into her favorite armchair with the grace of a queen holding court. "Since you seem to have forgotten the stories I used to tell you when you were children." Patricia opened her mouth to protest, but Eleanor held up a hand for silence. Rose was 17 when she fell in love with a man her parents considered completely unsuitable. He was an artist, a painter, who had no money, no prospects, and no family connections. Her parents forbade the match and arranged for her to marry a wealthy banker's son instead. Eleanor's voice took on the rhythmic cadence of a storyteller, and despite their shock and anger, the family found themselves drawn into the narrative. Rose could have accepted their choice. She could have had a life of comfort and social standing. Instead, she chose love. She eloped with the painter, was disowned by her family, and spent the first 5 years of her marriage living in a one-room apartment above a bakery, eating bread and soup while her husband struggled to sell his paintings. "But Grandma," Jake said softly, "didn't she regret it? When things got hard?" Eleanor's eyes sparkled with pride. She never regretted it for a single day, because she and Thomas built something beautiful together. They were never wealthy, but emotionally, spiritually, artistically. Thomas became a respected painter whose work is still displayed in museums today. Rose started a small business designing and sewing clothes for working women. They raised 4 children who grew up understanding that success isn't measured in dollar signs, but in the richness of a life well lived. Lana felt tears streaming down her cheeks as she listened to the story. She had never heard these details about her great-great-grandmother, had never known that Rose had faced similar struggles and criticism. Rose gave me this ring when I was 25, Eleanor continued, right after I told her that I was going to marry your grandfather despite my parents' objections. She said it was a reminder that the women in our family have always been strong enough to choose their own paths, even when those paths were difficult. But that's different, Patricia said, her voice strained. They were choosing love, marriage, family. Lana is choosing uncertainty. Lana is choosing authenticity, Eleanor replied firmly. She's choosing to use her talents in service of something she believes in. She's choosing to tell stories that matter, to shine light on issues that need attention, to build a career based on her values rather than just her bank account. Eleanor turned to look directly at Lana, and her voice grew softer, more intimate. Rose would have been proud of you, sweetheart. She would have understood exactly what you're trying to do, and she would have supported you completely. But what if she fails? Richard asked, his voice filled with genuine fear. What if she can't make it work? What if she ends up broken alone? What if she succeeds? Eleanor countered. What if she becomes the journalist she's meant to be? What if her stories change people's lives? What if she builds a career that fulfills her soul instead of just paying her bills? The room fell silent as the family absorbed Eleanor's words. Lana looked around at the faces of the people she loved most in the world, some showing understanding, others still marked by concern and confusion. I know you're scared for me, she said quietly, her voice stronger than it had been all evening. I know my choices don't make sense to you. But I'm not failing. I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm becoming the person I'm meant to be. She held up her hand, letting the ring catch the light again. This ring represents generations of women who chose courage over comfort, who chose authenticity over approval. I want to be worthy of that legacy. Patricia was crying now, quiet tears that she made no effort to hide. I just don't want you to struggle the way Rose did. I don't want you to face the kind of hardship that comes with unconventional choices. But Mom, Lana said gently, struggling isn't the same as failing. Sometimes struggling is how we become strong enough to succeed. Richard walked over to where Lana stood and, for the first time that evening, really looked at her. He saw the ring on her finger, but more importantly, he saw the determination in her eyes, the strength in her posture, the quiet confidence that had grown throughout the evening. You really believe you can make this work? He asked. I know I can, Lana replied. I know because I have something more valuable than money or security. I have passion, talent, and a family that raised me to be strong enough to fight for what I believe in. Slowly, hesitantly, Richard reached out and pulled his daughter into a hug. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair. I'm sorry for not seeing how hard you've been working, how much courage it takes to do what you're doing. Patricia joined them, wrapping her arms around both her husband and her daughter. I'm sorry too, she said through her tears. I love you, and I'm proud of you, even if I don't always understand you. As the family came together in the living room, sharing hugs and apologies and promises to do better, Lana felt the weight of the ring on her finger, not as a burden, but as a reminder of her strength, her heritage, and her right to define success on her own terms. Later that evening, as the family sat around sharing stories and laughter, Lana caught her grandmother's eye across the room. Eleanor smiled and nodded slightly, a gesture that seemed to say, this is what the ring was meant to do. This is what love looks like when it's strong enough to weather any storm. The sapphire caught the firelight, glowing with the promise of all the stories yet to be told, all the dreams yet to be realized, all the courage yet to be summoned. Lana Morrison was exactly where she belonged, surrounded by family who loved her, wearing a ring that connected her to generations of strong women, and ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with the knowledge that she was worthy of every dream she dared to chase.